So something I also wanted to do is challenge our opinions about films that we either adore or hate. I mean, I'm sure everyone, I'm sure you guys have certain films that you just do not understand. You just can't get behind the hype, and it could be the other way around. You absolutely love it and you just don't understand why it doesn't get more love from general audiences and critics. So I thought we'd focus on the general audiences because I always think that's more interesting.
Mm-hmm. So my film for this discussion is Bohemian Rhapsody.
Okay. And
this is a film that at the time, we saw it when we were young lads when we saw it, about 17, 18 years old.
Yeah.
Long time ago. And I gave it quite a bit of grace. I was like, okay, this is quite well done. Rami Malek does a great job as Freddie Mercury. It's entertaining. But as time's gone on, I've just thought this was so average. And the disservice it does to its subject. Freddie Mercury, fascinating guy. I mean, the stories you read about him are absolutely wild. And the original version of the film, fun little fact, Sacha Baron Cohen was trying to make it. And his style was very extreme.
Yeah.
Right. And he was on I think it was it was the Howard Stern podcast, and he was talking about how Freddie Mercury just has all these wild little stories. There were these parties where you had little people walking around with plates of cocaine on their heads, and it just shows you he's such an interesting guy. Lived a fascinating life.
Yeah.
And the film just feels so sanitized and so sterile,
clinically told.
It really doesn't do anything to propel Freddie Mercury's story. Doesn't tell you anything about him,
just apart from he's a great guy. Look
exactly
how great he is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Glorifies how talented he was, and he was, but that's it. It is so surface level.
Yeah.
And that was, but then I also think another reason why it did so well, because at the time, the landscape of cinema, musical biopics over the past few years, they've become more of a commodity now. And at the time, there weren't really as many.
Yeah.
So I feel like people were probably a bit kinder to it than they should have been.
It was something a bit new.
Yeah.
And I agree. I tell you what, I've only rewatched it once after we saw it in the cinema. It's not something that I go back to a lot, but I totally agree. And I must say, though, I'll admit, and this is something we do have to mention, I will admit that I didn't notice it the first time that we watched it. But there has been a lot of really fantastic video essays out there and stuff.
The editing, yes.
The editing
that's
is
a whole thing.
Massively flawed.
Yeah.
There's a particular video essay where Thomas Flight basically deconstructed that certain dialogue scene in particular, where it really shows how...
So many cuts. He pulls the... Why do they need to react? Why do we need a reaction shot of
There's so many reaction shots.
When he pulls the chair,
the
they
guys,
know he's sitting down.
The character's pulling the chair out, then we get a reaction shot of the guy looking at the guy pulling the chair out, then we get the picture of the chair and all that stuff. It's we don't need to know everything that's going on.
We can infer this,
and the blocking of it as well is just so
very
bad.
strange.
It's I think people really just exploded when they watched that particular video essay, which was really well deconstructed, because it was so clear how bad the blocking and editing of that particular scene was. And like I said, there are scenes that are worse than others, but didn't the editor come out?
Yeah, no, he responded to that video because it just went so viral.
That's pretty cool that he actually responded.
Yeah, and I guess that shows the power of the internet.
John Ottman.
So Ottman told the Washington Post, whenever he sees the scene, I want to put a bag over my head because that's not my aesthetic. Well, you were still given the footage in the dailies, and that's how you edited it.
So that's not how he intended it to look, basically.
But that's how you edited it.
So that is, but it is how it looked. Why did he say that it didn't look like it looked like
because
that?
I think he's got his back up, and he won the Oscar, and he was like, "Oh, how could you criticize me?" I think he was on another podcast saying that scene, it was because of studio mandates. They wanted me to tighten up the pace, and it's come on, man, come on.
Well, at the end of the day, it looked like that, man. So we're going to criticize how it looks.
Yeah.
We're going to, I mean, so he kind of was a bit, snobby about how he responded to that. So that's another issue with that. I don't think it's a terrible film at all, but I totally agree. I think it's majorly overrated.
Yeah.
When you compare it to other films, I mean, the film that came out next year, Rocket Man.
My God,
that was brilliant.
Excellent
I don't know
film.
what you guys
Excellent.
think about that, but Jesus, that just in every respect, I felt like that film just portrayed Elton John's personality in such a more creative and interesting way that was just so much more entertaining. It explored his character in more depth, like it showed his flaws.
Like
and
the camera work.
yeah,
Just everything about it.
the one-shot sequences,
so
you could tell that
good.
they really made
Yeah.
the most out of the set pieces that they had with all the extras dancing and all that stuff. It was just such a good time in the cinema, and just man, it was so much better than Bohemian Rhapsody.
Oh my God,
it's
just like completely night and day.
Yeah.
And the thing that Rocket Man had that I think Bo-Rap really lacks is like emotional depth and intelligence.
yeah.
With Bohemian Rhapsody, I think, and this is it's such a disservice to Freddie Mercury. His like inner, what's the word?
Thoughts.
Inner thoughts. Yeah, no, turmoil. Excuse me. His inner turmoil comes across so surface level, very. It's just quite Disney-ish, in terms of how the morality is presented. And Rocket Man is so like layered. It shows Elton John at his best, at his worst. Like he doesn't stand. Also it's the fact he's still alive as well.
He's a fucking arsehole in some of the scenes
exactly.
as well.
They
don't shy away from
himself in the
showing-
worst light.
So let's have a look at some reviews and see if they convince you that you're talking out your ass.
IMDb time. So
But you got look, Saul. You got to open up your mind. To
I
these
will.
reviews.
I will try.
They might convince you
try.
that you're talking bollocks.
So we have got a 9 out of 10 review from Alan Field 73765. Hello, Alan. If
Great
you're
name.
watching, please don't hate us. Like, don't
It's
cry.
all a matter of opinion, Alan.
Yeah.
What is it? 9 out of 10. He's giving it. Fucking.
This movie was a brilliant portrayal of the mixed-up life and massive talent that was Mercury, and that is no way meant to diminish the other fabulous musicians who made up this wonderful band. Yeah, stop you there, Alan. That was an again grace.
Already.
But everyone else,
Yeah.
like John Deacon, Brian May, Roger Taylor, they're such nothing characters. This is not really a Queen biopic. This is a Freddie Mercury story. They exist very much not as characters.
Props.
They are props and chess pieces to advance Freddie's story. So you don't get to learn anything about them. So definitely disagree with that. Whilst Freddie's life and death are quite well documented, his inner turmoil is not. Again, just spoke about this. Just so surface level. It's all it amounts to is Freddie. He's just sitting across the street from his girlfriend, making sad little puppy dog eyes at her. And like that's the extent of his emotional turmoil.
That's something I'll say. So just to butt in, but Rami Malek, I don't think he's a bad actor at all. I think he portrayed him pretty well, like in terms of the script that he was given. But people were going, like, they were just saying how fantastic his performance was and the depths that he went to in portraying him. I mean, let's say in terms of the way he spoke, it was pretty accurate. But I don't think he really needed to display a vast, like, depth of emotion in his performance. The script really didn't demand
it's
that.
the script as well. It didn't give him much to work with.
No.
And when people talk about how good his performance is, it's all technical.
Yeah.
And that's all impressive. That's all amazing. Like the amount of work he put in, not take away from that. And it's not, he does really well with like what he's given. But that just doesn't make the performance engaging for me. If like, okay, you speak like Freddie Mercury, I didn't feel anything. I felt nothing.
And there was so much to explore with Freddie Mercury's character.
So just to finish John's review, this movie opens this up for all to see and highlights actions and individuals who had a large influence on his fragile life, both good and horrendously bad. If only he could have been happy with the knowledge that he had one of the best singing voices. True, I agree with you there, Alan.
If only.
Very good. If only they knew. If not the best that ever fronted a rock band, Rami Malek does a wonderful job of portraying him, and in so many ways has captured his mannerisms to a T. Loved it, and listening to the music in an IMAX auditorium was brilliant.
It was absolutely
big up IMAX.
brilliant.
Christopher Nolan would love you.
Maybe that's where we missed a trick.
Yeah, man. Should have seen it in IMAX. And do one more. We've got a Ramon van der Niver. I'm butchering that name.
Name.
This movie is a must-see for any music.
10 out of 10 he's given this.
Another 10 out of 10. Any music and music lover, Queen fan or no Queen fan, anyone who sees this movie will be going through a roller coaster of emotions, being it Queen's music or the story behind the music. Rami Malek puts down an excellent version, God, that's an interesting way to phrase it, of Freddie Mercury, but all the actors play great in this movie. In my opinion, best thing to do is ignore the criticism and go see it for yourself.
Yeah,
and,
that's it. So just
and
ignore the
actually,
criticism,
and
enjoy
like to be serious here, I can see where they're coming from, and I think this is why I can understand how this film connected.
Don't look too much into it, man. Enjoy the experience,
Yeah,
bro.
don't give a shit. Why this film connected with audiences. We're looking at it from a completely different lens. You know, we're kind of looking at
analytical.
At the narrative, at the storytelling beats, at like everything else.
The potential that it had as well.
Yeah, but I think people enjoyed it because they had, you know, their expectations, I guess, were completely different to ours. But also, it kind of maybe for them, Queen was enough. The subject matter and like the brand
just
recognition,
the music, just seeing the music and just seeing the recreation of that.
Like that was enough for them. Like if it gave them the feeling of being a Queen concert, that was it. If that's the emotional reaction they got, they didn't care if it was like lacking depth, or emotional stakes, or like, you know, factual inaccuracies.
And that was
like,
our initial reaction. Wasn't
and like, and people will say, "Oh, but why didn't you just watch a documentary?" Well, because you still should be able to criticize that. So I can no, but this does show why it was successful and like beloved by audiences. But yeah, man, I just
still falls flat.
Didn't get it. It's just gone so much worse for me.
I guess we're glass half empty people, unfortunately, guys. Well, when it comes to this, anyway.